and welcome to today's video in which we will be discussing Excel basics for your chemistry courses in order to succeed. So let's just start with the headers and how you format headers and make them all accessible and visible. Here you can see that we have one very long header, which is fine right now. You can read the whole thing. But the second we add data next to it, which I'm going to do right now, you can see that now it is not visible, the whole header, which is a problem because there could be valuable information in there that now it's just not visible unless you actually click on the box and read what it says in the formula box. So in order to fix this, we are just going to press on the box that we want to format and click up here, Wrap Text. Now this is perfect because it keeps the width of the column the same. It just changes the height for this specific box. Some people might be tempted to go and make this width super wide in order to be able to fit the whole word. However, you can see that this is really a waste of space because it makes the whole column this wide. One other thing that you might want to do is if you see here, this red dye header actually is supposed to correlate with this entire concentration and absorbance. So we're saying that red dye, this is its concentration and absorbance, which I would just like to make this the header for both of these columns. I'm just going to go ahead and highlight the two that I want to combine and press merge and center. And now this red dye is on top of both of these. So that's how you make headers and subheaders and things like that. We're going to do the same thing with the yellow dye, merge and center. With this also, you can play around with how you want to justify it or align it. And you can do middle align, top align, bottom align. I'll do middle align. And again here, you can see that concentration has more to the word than just IO at the end. It also has molarity, which we need to know. So in order to be able to change all the headers super quick, we're just going to highlight this whole row and then click Wrap Text for all of them. And absorbance, you can see it wasn't needed because before we wrap the text, you can read all of absorbance, and then after, you can still read it all. So it won't negatively affect anything. It'll just positively affect the changes that need to happen, like concentration. Now you can read the whole thing. And then this is where changing the width of the columns is helpful too. I don't like that concentration is on two lines, so I'm just going to go and slightly adjust the width in order to make concentration all on the same line and the units on the next line. And again here, you could align it however you wish, right, center, or left. Some other formatting that you might want to do might be to create borders around your headers in order to just keep everything neat and tidy and organized. So how you do that is, let's say that we want these to have borders around it. We're just going to go click on this, and this is the border selections. And I'm just going to go click on all borders. Here I might go and click on this whole thing and then just click on outside borders. So you have to play around with that and you can see how the borders work, but that is where you find your borders. Another easy thing that you will probably have to do in Excel is move things around. So let's say that you don't like where the absorbance is right here, you want to move it around, you need to add another data set there. I'm just going to add what I want to move, click it, and drag it wherever I want to put it. So I'm going to put it over there now, and you can see you can just click on one thing or a selection of things, but you can move things around in that way as well with Excel. In addition to moving things around like I just showed you, you might also just want to simply add another column or row in between data that you already have without having to move everything else around. So how you do that is you're just going to select the row or the column that you want to insert something next to, and you're going to double tap on this with both of your fingers and just go here to insert, and it will insert something. So there you can see that whatever you highlighted, in this case we highlighted a column, it inserted something to the left. So if we wanted something right in between concentration and absorbance, we would just highlight this, insert, and it inserts something in between that. Again, you can do the same thing with the rows, and we're just going to go here, insert, and it inserts something above. You can do the same thing with deleting things. You can double tap with both of your fingers and press delete, and it deletes that whole thing. So there's just some moving around that would be helpful for you when you use Excel. Excel is here to make your life easier and save you time. So another thing that you might have to do, let's say you have data that you know it'll go 0, 1, 2, 3. So essentially you're going to add 1 to the data set each time. Instead of going and manually typing 2, 3, which would take forever depending on how many data points you need, Excel, you can grab 2 of the boxes that have the relationship that you're trying to show. In this case, we're going from 2 to 3, so that's adding 1. So we're going to highlight those 2 boxes, grab this bottom right corner, and we're just going to drag it down, and Excel will just continue the relationship that we're trying to do. As you see, it goes from 11 to 12 to 13. We're just going to stop it there, but it just continues the relationship that you're trying to show. But you have to start it with something, so you have to give it at least 2 boxes to start with so it can see the relationship that you're trying to create. So again, if here we're trying to add 2, first I would type 0, then I would type 2. You don't have to keep going. You just drag the 2 that you're trying to show the relationship, bring it down, and Excel will continue that relationship for you. Here's an example of why I was saying that you need to have more than 1 box to show Excel the relationship. Let's say that I'm just going to grab this one and bring it all the way down. So I'm just grabbing 1 box instead of the 2 like I just showed you. Excel just brings down that 1 and just repeats it, which might be helpful. You might want to repeat a similar number, but that's why you need to grab 2 boxes like I'm doing here, which is the first example that we did, and then there it will show you the relationship continues. Now let's say we want to do something like multiply by 3. So here I just did the same things that I did with the other. I started with the relationship that I wanted to continue. So I did 1 and 3, which is 1 times 3 is 3. But here you'll see that if I take this and drag it down, it is not going to keep multiplying by 3. In fact, it adds by 2. So there's some things like this that are confusing to Excel, and it's not sure what relationship you want to repeat. Now let's say I even do 3 times 3 is 9, and I continue it in this regard, and then I grab these 3, and then I bring it down. Excel is still confused. It still does not understand that I'm trying to multiply each of those by 3. So in order to do more complicated ones like this, instead of just basic addition, what we're going to have to do is an equation with Excel. So we're going to do the equal sign, and we're going to do 3 times whatever was directly above. So I'm just going to click on the cell, and then do another parentheses, and then enter. And now you can see it says 9. So in order to continue this without you manually putting it in every time, we're going to take the box of the formula, and again, just drag it all the way down. And there you can see that all of these are multiplied by 3, and you can actually double check that to make sure that Excel didn't make a mistake. So let's just randomly grab this one. You can see up here the formula auto-populates. If you click on this, it'll actually highlight the cells that are talked about in the formula. So here we can see that it was saying 3 times the one above it, which is exactly what we want. But this is a way to continue Listen Excel without you having to manually input everything yourself, and it will save you a lot of time. So let's continue on the theme of Excel making your life easier. So let's say we have these functions, and then these are our values of X that we need to plug into those functions. So instead of going and plugging in each individual value of X on your calculator and typing the answer, Excel can do it for you. So if we're going to say that in this column, we want to take the natural log of all of these values of X, this is how we do it. We are going to say equals. It's very important that for any of these things where you want Excel to do a function, you have to start with equal because you're telling it that it is going to do this function for you. So you're going to say equals ln, and it comes up, and then we are going to select that, and now we are going to just say x, ln of x, and then press enter. And that is the natural log of that value. Again, in order to continue this function throughout all of the values you want to do, we are just going to take the bottom right corner and drag it down all the way. And let's double check that it did what we wanted it to do. Let's go here, click on it. Again, this took the natural log of A3, which in this case was the next value we wanted it to do. So if you have a function and values of X, that would be how you continue the function with the values that you want it to do. Now let's do the next example. So we're going to do x squared plus 3x minus 4. Again, we are just going to press equal. And with this, I go kind of parentheses crazy because I like to make sure that it is doing the right function and what I want it to be doing. So I probably do more parentheses than are needed, just as a disclaimer. But we are going to say we want x, and then we are going to do the caret for squared, and that is how you do exponents. And we're going to go and add another parentheses here because we want it to be x squared. And then we are going to say plus, and then again parentheses, 3 times. You have to do the star if you want Excel to do a times. You can't do x because in this case x is an alphabet letter instead of a function, so you have to do the star. And we'll do 3 times, again, we're just going to click on the x value that we want and those parentheses minus 4 and just press enter, and that should do it for you. And again, we're going to click on this box, take down this bottom right corner, drag it, and that will continue the function for all of our values of x. Let's just choose a random one and double check. Again, we can see that it is doing x squared plus 3 times x minus 4. That's exactly what we want. Now let's do this one. So this is saying e to the negative and then all x divided by r times t. And in this case, it was so nice that we were given what the value of r and the value of t was, so we will need to do that. So again, we are going to start with the equal sign. And in this case, the e is actually going to be exponent. So instead of doing the caret for this, we're just going to say exponent. And if you're not sure what some of these functions are, like if you want an average or a sum or a total or things along that nature, you can just Google it and Google will come up with the right function for you. So we are just going to take the exponent, so that was this whole thing to the power, and now we are going to say negative, but again, we want this whole thing to be negative, so add those parentheses in, and we are going to say that is x divided by, and then this is parentheses, r times t, parentheses, parentheses, parentheses. And you can see here that the parentheses are actually color-coded. So here you can see that the purple one is finished, and you can see where they all finish to make sure that the parentheses line up to where you need it to be for PEMDAS, or to make sure that everything is under, for example, here, everything is under the negative exponent. We can see that the red parentheses and the red parentheses gets everything that we need under that. So that is all good to go. So you press enter, and then that is the answer for this. So something with this that I'm going to show you in 1 second is when we drag it down, it comes up with an error code. And this is because when we drag it down, it is saying that the r and the t value that we chose, it is saying that the r value is now actually the t, and the t value is this blank space. And that's because when you drag it down, it moves down the list to do the next values. So Excel is doing what it should do, but not what we need it to do. So how do we fix this? So when you have numbers like this that are constant, that you do not want to move, you just want those numbers, you don't want a list, you are going to add dollar signs around the numbers that are constants and that are fixed. So here we are going to add a dollar sign in front of the H, and that is saying that the H column is constant in this, do not change the H. And then we are also going to add a dollar sign in front of the 1, and that is saying that the 1 row is fixed. So now we have fixed both the H and the 1, so this is saying that the 8.314 value is constant, do not change that. We're going to do the same thing for T. We're going to add a dollar sign around both the row and the column because we just want that T value every time, and then we're going to press enter. And now we're going to take this and drag it all the way down, and you will see that now magically the numbers appear and it's correct. Let's just double check somewhere random. We'll go to the very bottom, click on it, because when you click on the formula bar up here, everything becomes color coded. So you can see here your X value that we want. That's the right X value for this row. The R value, that's the right R, and the T, that's the right T. So I always just go and double check to make sure that everything is squared away and what you want it to be. Now let's do our last example here, or the square root of 2 times 10 to the negative 18th divided by x. And this divided by x is also under the square root. So again, we're going to start with equal, and we are going to do square root, and you can see that it pops up here. So also, if you're not sure of something, you could start typing what you think it would be and see what pops up. But again, you can always Google if you're not sure. And then we'll do the parentheses. And now it is the function that we need to do. So now the square root's taken care of. So we are going to say 2 times, and again parentheses, 10 to the negative 18. Again, I go parentheses crazy. And then we want that whole thing divided by x. So we are going to say another parentheses there, divided by x. And then we're going to end the parentheses there to make sure that this divided by x is the black parentheses and the black parentheses, so that's all under the square root. So we are going to press enter, and that will give us our answer. So instead of dragging it down like we've been doing, what you can also do is double click on that, and it will bring all of the values down. It'll auto-populate to where you have the last like header in this row. So you can see that we didn't actually want to fill this one up, so we could literally just go and press delete. So that is a quick overview of those functions. Something else that we can do here is now we can take the average of all of these columns. So if we want to take the average of all of these natural logs, we are just going to again press equals average. We're going to click there. And we are going to just highlight everything that we want to take the average of and press enter. And now it's the average of all the natural logs. And again, you don't want to have to do more work than necessary, so we don't want to have to go and do equals average and highlight for everything. So we are just going to take this box, click on the bottom right corner like we've done, and we are going to drag it over. And that just will continue the theme of what we were doing above. So it's going to continue this average theme of this entire selection in your next column as you drag it over. So we'll go here and we'll see that it just did that. Perfect. It's again the average and it just goes to the next. So when you take something and drag it down, it follows that vertical continuation of what's happening. So when we dragged it down, it followed this list of values. But then when you drag it horizontally, it'll continue either way that you go it. In this case, it was to the right. So now it was saying equals this list of values and equals this list of values. So you can do that drag function both vertically and horizontally, and it works the same way. So another thing you might want to know in Excel is how to create scatter plots to show your data. So in this case, I'm going to graph absorbance and concentration, and how we're going to do this is we're going to press Insert, and we're going to go here to Scatter, XY Scatter, click on this button, and then we're going to want this option as the scatter plot. Now you'll see that a graph auto-populates here, but it's empty, so now we have to give it some data. So let's just go up here in this tab and press Select Data. And now you'll see here that the legend entries is completely empty, so there's no data points here. And this just means how many lines you're going to have. So let's say you want to graph 2 different lines or 3 different lines. Every series that you add, like here's one series, so whatever is in series 1 will be 1 line. And if you want to show another line comparing it, you will add another series for series 2 and so on. But right now we just want 1 line just to show this data point. So I'm just going to go here and click on this button for X values, and we're going to highlight what we want as our X axis. So in this case, we want this concentration. So I just drag that down and I'm going to press enter. And we're going to do the same thing for the Y values. Press this button and go to the Y values and press enter. And now we will press OK, and you see all of this data auto-populates. So now I'm going to show you how to format these graphs correctly so you get full points and they look professional and scientific. So one of the first things we're going to do is we are going to delete these major grid lines. We do not want those. So I simply just clicked on one of them, and I'm going to press the delete button. And we're going to click on the horizontal ones and again press delete. Now that's gone. Now what we want to do is we want to make some tick marks on our axis. So let's start with our vertical axis. So I'm just going to go on this and double click on your vertical axis, and you'll see on the right this auto-populates for your axis, how to format it. And what we want is down here for tick marks. So we're just going to go, and I just like to choose the cross major tick marks and the cross minor tick marks. It doesn't really matter which of these you choose, you just need one of them. So there you can see that the tick marks auto-populated. We're going to do the same thing for the x-axis and double click on that. And you see the same thing pops up under here under tick marks. We're just going to go cross and cross. So in this case with this graph, we also want a trend line. So how we're going to do that is I'm just going to click on one of the data points, and then you'll see that this went up to the chart design tab and all of these things populated. We're just going to go here to add chart element. I clicked on it, and we're going to go down here to trend line. Now for this situation, we want a linear trend line. So I'm going to click on the linear trend line, and you'll see that auto-populates. So with the trend line, you actually want more information about the trend line. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and double click on the trend line, and all of this information on the right pops up. So for this, we actually are going to want to display the equation on the chart and also display R-squared value on the chart. Now these will be helpful in data analysis and other things and are just very important to have, so make sure you always do both of those. The next thing every good graph has is labels for the X and the Y axis. And again, we go under chart design, and we are just going to again go under chart element, and we are going to go to axis title. And here, let's choose primary horizontal and do that first. So here you're just gonna label it whatever was on your x-axis. In this case, it was concentration. And make sure to always include units if those are applicable. And we're gonna do the same thing for the y-axis. Under here, add chart element, axis titles, primary vertical, and we're going to label what is on the y-axis so that you know when you are looking at the graph. Now, some professors or teachers vary on if they want a chart title or not, but in general, in the upper division chemistry courses, you will not want a chart title, and instead you will want a figure caption. So I'm going to go ahead and click on chart title and just press delete on my keyboard. However, if your teacher or professor does want a chart title, you would have just titled that properly with what the graph is representing. All right, this is looking great. However, there's one other thing I want to show you, and that is all this unnecessary white space. On your graph, you really want it just to focus on your data and not have unnecessary white space, so I will show you how to fix it. What we will do is we will click on the x-axis, and here you will see that this comes up as bounds. So bounds minimum and bounds maximum. And that is just saying that it is going from 0 to 50 on the x-axis. However, we can see here that our data starts around 30, right? We can also double check here. It starts at 31. So because I want to minimize that white space, I'm going to go and manually change the x-axis and make it start at 30, and then just press enter. And you will see here now, it takes up a lot more space on the x-axis, so that is great. However, on the y-axis, there's still also some unnecessary white space. So we're going to go ahead and do the same change there. So I'm going to click on the y-axis, and now the bounds comes up for the y-axis. Again, minimum and maximum. We can see if we just look at our data that it starts around 0.142. So I'm just going to go and change it to maybe have it start around 0.08. We don't want it to be too close to that data point. We don't want it to be right on the edge, but we want to minimize that white space. And here I am very happy with how this chart looks. There's not a lot of unnecessary white space. The data fills the whole plot, and it is formatted correctly. With graphs, if you're going to put it in a write-up, what you want to do to make it the best quality is we are going to click on the graph and go over here to Home. We are going to go under here under Copy, press this arrow, and we are going to copy as a picture. Now we're just going to press OK. And now this graph is copied as a picture. So when you go and paste it, it will paste as a picture, in which it will be a lot more clear and high quality. Let's pretend that this is your write-up. We just have copied your graph as a picture. Now I'm just going to go and paste this in my write-up, and you will see it pastes as a picture, and the quality is much more clear. So that is a little tip in order to have the best quality graph for your write-up. Now let's say that you want to increase or decrease the amount of decimal places or change how a number is written. Let's say it goes from general format to scientific notation format in either the x-axis, y-axis, or the Trendline equation. This is how you would do that. So we're just going to go on whatever we want to change. Let's say you want to add a decimal point to the x-axis. I just double-clicked on the x-axis itself, and then we're going to go down here to number. And then under number, it's currently under general, which is what you would interpret as 1, 2, 3, etc. But let's say we want to change this into scientific notation. We would just go down here and click on scientific, and then you can see that also you could change the amount of decimal places. So if you wanted to increase the amount of decimal places, you could change that there. This looks quite insane. For this, we do not want to do scientific notation, but this is how you would change it. You could do the same exact thing with the Trendline equation. Just double click on the Trendline equation. Under number, you would click on whatever you want it to be. In this case, let's make it scientific. And then you could increase or decrease the amount of decimal places. So let's say we want 0 decimal places. You can see what would happen in a situation like that. In this case, how it was formatted was correct for this, but if you have a different graph with different numbers in which you need to change it from general to scientific or change the amount of decimal places, that is how you would do it. So let's say that you have multiple sets of data point that you want on the same graph, and the graph does not necessarily fit under an XY linear scatter plot, like a titration, for example. So in this case, we're going to go to Insert, and we're going to again click on this scatter option, but instead of choosing this option, we're either going to choose the scatter with smooth lines and markers, and you would choose this example if your professor or teacher wanted your data points to be showed. But if they just want a scatter with smooth lines, so the data points do not have the bullet marker indicators, then you would choose this. I'm just going to go ahead and pretend like our professor does not want us to show the data points, and I will click on the scatter with smooth lines for this example. Again, it pops up as empty, so we're going to go here to select data. And remember, you have to create a series for each line that you want. So let's create our first line. So I just press the plus button. And here for the X values, we are going to make it the volume is on our X axis and press enter. And for our Y, we are going to do our first line, the pH of this concentration. So we're going to click on those for the Y. Now let's do our second line, because remember, we're wanting to show numerous titrations on one graph. We are just going to press the plus button. And now these are the values for the second line. So we want the same X values, so we're going to choose again the volume as our X, and then for Y, we are going to make it this pH instead with the differing concentration. And now we are going to press OK, and you can see that both of these lines auto-populate on the same graph. And you could do this for as many lines as you want on a graph, and that is how you increase the amount of lines. Now we're going to wave our magic wand and do all the formatting that I showed you in the last example. Boom, there we go. So in this case, you'll notice we did not have a trendline equation because the trendline options, if we go and click on this and we again go up here to trendline, the trendline options aren't what we want because it doesn't correlate with the data that we're trying to analyze. So in this case, we're not trying to figure out what the slope is and what the slope means or things like that. We're using the graph visually to show us things. So this graph is used for different things, and that is why there is not a trend line. In this example as well, it would be super important in your figure caption to say what the blue line represented and what the orange line represented. You would need to indicate that in your figure caption so that the reader would know which line represented what. Now let's pretend that you actually chose the graph option that had the markers indicated instead of just the smooth lines. But let's say that you don't actually like these dots as the markers and you want something else. Or you want to change the color of the line, which you could do in either of the options we showed. But I'll show you how to do both of those things right now. So let's click on those dots that we don't like the marker of, and it'll pull up the format data series. And under this paint bucket thing, we're going to go under line, and let's first change the color of the line. So let's pretend like you actually want it to be green. So there you could go ahead and see that the line changes to green. Here you could also change many different things about the line, including the width. Let's make it much thicker. You could also change what type of line it is. Let's say you want it dashed like this or dotted. So here's all your line things. Now let's say you want to change the marker. So let's say that you want it to match. So let's change it to green as well. And you can change the type of marker it is. Let's go under marker options, and we're going to go built in because that's how you can customize it. And we're just going to choose whatever icon you want. Here, let's make it square. And then again, you could change the size of it. You can make it really big, really small. And then let's go ahead and fill the color and make it green as well, since the thing that we did before was for border to make it green. So now the graph looks a little wild. You wouldn't actually want it to look like this. I'm just showing you how you could change everything on the graph to make it custom for whatever you wanted. And in this case, if you had the markers on the graph, it would be important in your figure caption to do a green square as the indicator and an orange circle as the other indicator to show what represented what on your graph.